Right now here on 95.3 FM, WILI. I'm your host, Chris Reddy. I have my two co-hosts in studio today, Mike DeSoniers, Curtis Ayler. We have our producer, Matt, our intern, Anthony, in the studio with us, and we have a special guest for the first segment. He is the chairman of the Mansfield RTC. Aaron Bowman is back on right now. How are you doing, Aaron?
Good. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Of course. You're always welcome to come on the show with us. We enjoy having you here. One thing that I want to say before we get started is that I know that both on this show right now and on Mike DeSonier's show, Unfiltered, we spend, as hosts, a lot of time making sure that we not only research topics, talk about things that are very relevant to local issues, state legislative issues. We provide a lot of background information. We provide context. We provide specific data and facts to help provide you with the most accurate information to help you make informed decisions about the things that we talk about. We talked over the weekend. I texted Curtis and Mike and asked if they had the opportunity to listen to another show here on WILI that was the day after mine. And I sat and listened to it. I'm going to say it's an hour of my life I'm never getting back. It was not only, I'm going to say, lacking in what we provide in content here, but also really did not discuss things that are happening, issues that impact us as residents and taxpayers of Windham County with at all the same amount of information and context that we really try and provide here. This is important because we as individuals who are trying to, in the case of Mike and Curtis, elected officials in the town of Windham, to really represent not only the voters who put them into office, but also to make sure that the messaging is right and we are providing good information so that people can make good decisions that impact their lives, impact their bank accounts, impact their family budget. Affordability, we've talked about, is a huge issue over and over again on the show. One of the things that I got out of Friday's show that I listened to, besides about 57 thank yous and 44 great jobs, was that if you support municipal workers at all, you had to vote for this budget, yes, this budget referendum.
Oh, is that right?
Had to vote yes.
Okay.
That was said a number of times. At the very end of the show, the special guest they had, who happens to be my political opponent right now in the 2026 election, summarized the whole hour in a very short statement, which I'm going to provide for you.
Let's hear it.
When she was asked to summarize, she said, federal government bad, local government good. My statement to that is, ask all of us again in July when we're writing out the checks for our property taxes whether we still feel the same way, because I think it's going to be a different answer. So, getting that off my chest, we will now get into our episode of Right Now here on WILI. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in. We really appreciate everybody that supports the show and listens. Just last night, I had an opportunity at a meet and greet to talk to a number of people from the Windham area who said they tune in every single week now and listen to this.
Oh, wow.
They love the information that we provide. They love the messaging that we provide. There's definitely an impact that's happening here from us every single week, twice a week, being on the air and providing this type of information to our listeners. As we start to get into this, one of the big things that went on this week in Windham was the budget referendum vote. We've talked about this on previous episodes of both Unfiltered and Right Now, that in the past couple of weeks since the legislative session ended, money has been allocated to towns across Connecticut. Not every town is going to be receiving funds because this does use the Pequot formula for disbursement of funds, similar to the casino revenue. I believe it's only 124 out of 169 towns get that money. And there's a great disparity in the amount of money that each one of these towns is going to get. And a lot of that is because there's preferential treatment to certain cities, certain municipalities in Connecticut. Unfortunately, in eastern Connecticut, many of our small towns are ones that will only see a small amount of that money coming in. There was two portions of this money that was allocated from the state of Connecticut as part of the end of this legislative cycle. One was something we've discussed a number of times that goes along with the educational cost-sharing grant that had not been adjusted for years, even to inflation. This sounds like it's going to be a recurring fund, but there was about $180 million that was provided to help offset the educational cost-sharing grants lack of increase over the past decade plus. That was done to help relieve some of the property tax burden that people have been feeling over the past few years. And then we have this one-time $100 million approximately that is a one-time municipal aid fund that we're talking just before the show. There's right now some confusion in the wording as to how this money can exactly be utilized and in what, I'm going to say in what capacity you can use this money within these municipalities that are going to receive it. So we're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes here. One of the big things that I want to talk about before we talk to Aaron here is a really big announcement that came out in the state of Connecticut just a few hours ago, and that is the suspension of the campaign of one of our gubernatorial candidates. We have our state Republican convention this weekend at Mohegan Sun. All 169 towns are going to be sending delegates there to choose our congressional district candidates, our governor candidates, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, comptroller.
State senator too, right?
No, state senator, mine is separate. It's its own convention next week.
Oh.
Okay. State convention is different. You have the four that each town is part of are going to be a probate judge convention, a state representative convention, unless it's a single town district, senatorial conventions, and then the state convention. And the state convention is all those upper, top tier.
Gotcha. Statewide positions.
Yep, statewide positions.
Cool.
So that's what we're going to see this weekend. One of those candidates for governor dropped out. We had three of them. It was Aaron Stewart, Ryan Fazio, Betsy McCoy. As of today, because I'm sure that people over this past week have heard some of the news that's coming out from New Britain, but Aaron Stewart has, I'm going to say, backed out of the campaign or the gubernatorial race for right now. She said that she has suspended the campaign for the time being to focus on some of these allegations that are being brought against her, to focus on her family. I've read a couple of statements that were put out by political officials regarding this. The one thing that I want to comment about this is that there was a lot of infighting that was going on in the past couple of months. I hate seeing that because we historically have had the issue that we have some infighting. There are times where Republicans eat each other alive. When it is such an overwhelming majority in the state of Connecticut of one-party rule, we can't have this type of stuff going on. Was this maybe a blessing in disguise to take away some of the contention of a three-way race that we're about to see this, going into this weekend? And now we're just down to two candidates. My concern would have been that you definitely had some serious allegations that were coming out, and potentially, I think this could have hurt other candidates besides just the one that was named in some of these concerns. So I just want to make sure that we had it out there that this is new news. It's going to be a completely different convention for the state of Connecticut at Mohegan Sun this weekend. And if you guys want to chime in a little bit on this and kind of talk about it, I know Aaron is really involved in some of these campaigns and has been in contact with a number of the people who are kind of key names involved in these state level races. So do you want to mention something here and talk to us a little bit about it?
It's going to be interesting, obviously, now that this is all transpired. A lot of people now, the phone calls are going out, delegates. I mean, this is my first convention I'm going to. First time being a super delegate. I get to tally votes, so I'm up on stage. You don't know what you're getting into when they say, "Hey, why don't you run for state central?" You know, so it's gonna be interesting. At least the phone calls will stop eventually. But today it was okay. Well, all these people that were supporting Aaron, where are they going to go? We need to get them over to one side or the other. I've talked with Fazio. I've talked with McCoy. I've talked with Aaron. Working on some local races here on the 29th. So it should be a very interesting dynamic to see how everything's going. I don't know if there'll be as much whipping going on when they have the switch vote, or the change vote. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an interesting experience regardless. Chris Coyle and I are going to get there pretty early tomorrow morning. We have some stuff set up for Wins Labs and then hotel rooms and see how this goes. But I really think it's going to be a little bit more dynamic than what we thought going into it, because now it's down to 2 and trying to figure out where everybody's going to fall into place.
And there's a lot of jockeying going on
right now. It is behind the scene inside baseball is very interesting to say the least.
Absolutely.
But to your point of the arguing, it is nice. It would be nice, I guess I should say, to see that stop. I know there was a little contention between Ryan and Aaron, and then you kind of had Betsy off to the side. She's suing the New York governor because of the pipeline. She's doing stuff. So it's kind of nice to see that at least one kind of stayed out of the back and forth. And one thing I will give the Democrats, they might fight behind closed doors, but you never see it out in public. They get in step, hey, Biden's going to run, or Kamala's going to be the next president. Okay, we all get in lockstep and we support her. Hopefully, coming out of this convention, people can just say, okay, this is the candidate. We're going to get behind him or her, and let's move forward and really push the party forward, because we need change in this state.
Absolutely.
It's pretty bad.
I'm grateful to Aaron Stewart's campaign. I think that it's a very difficult decision to make this late in the game. I think that she was obviously under a lot of pressure to stay in. She's a very compelling candidate. When you can find a candidate that has statewide recognition, that has the executive experience, that isn't from Fairfield or New Haven County, that someone that represents a part of the state that looks a little bit more like the Connecticut that we know out here in the quiet corner, that puts her just as a generic candidate with those qualifications. That's a really compelling thing. I'm sure she was encouraged to run. I was sure she was encouraged to stay in. But I think it was really big of her to put out a statement, to accept accountability and submit herself to the process of going through whatever might have gone off the rails in New Britain, and to step away from public life is a big and hard choice, but I think it's the right one to make for the party. So I'm very grateful to her for removing that kind of controversy from our party statewide. So thank you very much to the Stewart campaign for that.
Yeah, and also I want to say that I really do hope that there is some explanation for what has happened, because I don't want to see anything bad happen to somebody who is honestly trying to be a public servant. You know, when we look at the role of a public servant, whether you look at first responders, politicians, whoever it might be, we don't get into this for the wrong reasons. Many of us get into it because we want to make positive change. We want things to get better for other people. I got sick and tired of sitting there on my couch listening every day to the news and Connecticut's media propaganda, constantly going against everything that we hold as our founding values and principles that we can all get behind. I do hope that there's a good explanation. I hope that Erin and her family comes out of this unscathed. We definitely don't want to see those things happen. So I do hope that there is some positive outcome for this, but I'm going to agree with your sentiment there, Curtis, that absolutely this was the right decision at this point in this race, because we are at a very crucial period where you either had to get in or get out.
And you're absolutely right to bring up the media too, because some of the allegations that are out there right now against Stewart, I mean, just if you read past the headlines, I mean, clearly these news organizations were just hell bent to throw this poor lady under the rug. I mean, it's clearly not just her opposition, but the media is lining up against her. And of course, I hope the best for her in this whole investigation, this process that they go through. I mean, let's be honest, folks. I mean, everyone in this room is involved in local politics. We know what a mess running a town or a city is. She's getting in trouble for how she uses her purchase card in New Britain. They probably don't even have a policy about how you can use that purchase card. Let's be dead honest right now. So let's all chill out. Give her the privacy that she has asked for. She's going to go through the process. She's not a public figure anymore. And she did it for the good of the party, and I appreciate that very much.
And one thing that I want to also say, Curtis, and you could probably answer this also, when you look at purchase cards, P cards, as a lot of people refer to them as part of political life and being an elected official, there are expenses. There are expenses that are obviously approved for someone in that position. Mm-hmm. When you look at now how these are reviewed, I keep seeing audit as a word that is being thrown about. Passed all these audits, everything went through an audit. As someone who's on the Board of Finance, when you look at purchases such as this, it's not an audit.
No,
it's
absolutely.
reviewed by a Board of Finance, but there's no formal auditing process that's going on here. So there are some, I'm going to say, mixed messaging there about what actually is probably going to be seen here as this story continues to develop.
Yeah, when you talk about the formal audits, and towns go through them all the time at different levels, and the banks and the state wants you to look at different criteria all the time. It's always changing, but it's never as granular as an individual purchase on a P card. Let's all be honest. Like the language and characterizations around it, I really feel for her. They were really unfair. She had a difficult decision to make about how she was going to tackle them. I think that she was really thinking about what was best for the party, and I do appreciate her very much.
Yeah. All right. So one of the reasons why Aaron is in here today. Is he actually contacted me a couple of days, said, hey, we have something going on in the town of Mansfield.
Yeah, you do.
Can you give
Just
me an
a little bit.
Can you give me an opportunity to get some of this story out? Because this is something that has really been developing in the town of Mansfield over the past few days. It's kind of taken on a little bit more of an impact, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And you told us that now radio or TV stations are starting to catch on and see a little bit of the news that's coming out of Mansfield. You've been very vocal about this on social media, about what's happened. I'm going to let you describe the entire scenario and the situation that's happening to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
But again, I want to also include here that these are, again, going to be allegations.
Yes.
So we want to be very careful about that.
Yep.
I also want to say that us bringing this forward is not in any way trying to target someone, or we don't bring this up because we're looking to damage someone. Mm-hmm. We bring this up because there is really a significant lack of transparency.
Bingo.
And accountability going on.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Aaron, and tell us a little bit about what you've been dealing with as the chairman of the RTC in Mansfield for the past few weeks.
So this actually goes all the way back to 2024. Mm-hmm. There was so the town manager had sent a text message to the wrong person.
I heard this.
And the text message, in a nutshell, if you Google it, it'll come up, or DuckDuckGo it, whatever you use. And it basically said it was meant for the librarian, the head librarian. He sent it to the person he was talking about by mistake. And basically, in a nutshell, it says the town manager has the ability, because of the charter, in his opinion, to bust the kneecaps of any residents that creep on the librarian. So kind of like, look at me, I'm the big guy, I'm going to protect you. I'm the tough guy. Yep. And so certain council members were like, that's inappropriate. I said, you're violating your own workplace harassment policies, workplace violence, and then no suspension, no day off, it was just, it was done as a joke. Brush it under the rug, like most cities do in towns, right? They brush stuff under the rug. Well, the broom is not big enough this time around. So I got a call from one of our council members. We were talking budget, and long story short, I was like, where's the town manager been? and I made a little bit of a joke, and she was like, well, how did you know about that? I'm like, well, it was pretty obvious what was going on. And then there was an anonymous email. Again, take it for what it's worth. An anonymous email. Can't really track the person down, but basically said there was inappropriate behavior going on at the library. The library's closed right now. That's why they sent it, because I guess they visit it often. And they weren't happy with what they were seeing. So we have a weak mayor in Mansfield. We have a town manager, a council of 9. And from my understanding, from just public records, looking at meetings, talking to the council members that are Republicans on the council, that they knew about this email, right? And then there were some issues with personnel. And the town manager, what I was initially told, was put on administrative leave on April 2nd. It actually ended up being April 12th. However, the Republicans on the town council, they didn't make this decision all together. It was just the mayor and deputy mayor. And then they decided to tell the Republicans, hey, a week later, this is what's going on, but we're really not going to tell you what's going on. So I came out with a press release that we have a mayor that says, Tony Moran says, he's a superb town manager. We have other Democrats, Carlita Cotton, Sarah DeFrenzy, I think is her last name. We believe in open government, transparent government. Well, these are all the things you ran on. Well, why is it not happening now? Why are we so tight-lipped about this? We were going through budget season like everybody else. The town manager did most of the budgeting process. He would give those presentations. Now other people were stepping in. So I don't think the town's used to a Republican chair that's very vocal and sends out press releases. So I said, okay, if you're not going to tell the Republican counterparts on there, I'm going to call you out for it, because this is not transparent government. We need to know who's in charge. We need to know if we're paying for this guy. So he is on a paid administrative leave. He's still getting his stipend of over $600 a month for a vehicle and all these other things. And people are filling those positions. So to me, it was, and to be very clear, if this was flip-flopped and Republican, I would have done the same thing if it was a Republican town committee and I was the chair, and I said, why aren't we not making a statement? And they could have done away with all the press releases is just say, hey, we put the manager on administrative leave. There's an ongoing investigation going on. This is what the allegations are. We'll let you know when we know more. Just like any other government agency does. But because they want to protect him so much, going all the way back to 2024 with the text message that was completely inappropriate, they decided we're not going to say anything. So they've been quiet this whole entire time. Channel 8, WFSB, I mean, even the Greenwich Press has picked up this story now. So it's making its rounds, and it just goes to show you that just because you're in government doesn't give you the right not to be transparent. I don't care what party you're in. The important part of local government running, and so everybody knows what's going on, is to be that transparent with them. So that's kind of where we're at right now, and still no statement from the Democratic majority in town.
Of course. And to further that point, that really is the job of the political party that's in charge when something like this happens, to make sure that they don't let it simply become stagnant and allow any type of question. What happened? People start talking. All of a sudden, it becomes rumors and everything else. You have to meet these things head on. They have to be handled directly. And you're right. You really begin to question everything else that's going on when something like this, especially when it's about personnel issues, potential harassment.
Top person in town.
Yeah.
He's the guy that makes the decisions. Luckily, there's no train derailments this week like we had before, because the fire chief is now the one who's sitting in that position. Guy can't do everything. So we need answers, and we should be entitled to the answers as residents in the town.
Absolutely. Yeah, because they're your employees.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, we talked about this just before, and we only have just about a minute or so left, but there's been other controversy surrounding this, and I don't want to go too far into it, but when this town manager was hired from New Hampshire,
correct,
on his way out the door in 2020, which was during COVID, he decided that there would be a non-first responder hazard pay stipend given out to a number of his fellow town employees. It sounded like it was pretty directed to certain people and not to others, and that this was like checks, one-time checks, stipends that were given to these employees ranging from $300 to $2,500 for each individual. So there has been some other concerns.
There has been, and I wasn't in the RTC at the time, but the chair at that time got a call from the Republican Town Committee in New Hampshire and said, you need to watch out for this guy. Yeah. He likes to spend. He gave a bunch of money going out the door, and that leads me to believe, because I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know what the allegations are, but if you look at our spending, every single project we've done has come over budget.
Sure.
Some 100% over budget.
Yeah.
So makes me wonder, is this a money thing? What's going on here? And this is why we need answers from the town, because people are going to start wondering. Facebook's going to turn into a cesspool, and we need to just say, hey, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. We'll let you know when we have more and the investigation's complete.
We're coming up to the end of our first segment here, the bottom of the hour. We're going to be back in a couple of minutes right here on WILI. Welcome back to Right Now. I'm Chris Reddy in studio. My two co-hosts, Mike DeSoniers, Curtis Ayler. We had Aaron Bowman on our first segment. We have swapped out for another guest now in the studio with us. I'm going to give a little bit of a preview here because our guest is going to be here announcing a very important change in his life, because he has decided to take the big leap, throw his hat in the ring to get involved for the 2026 elections. I first contacted him a few weeks ago and really was glad to have someone who I think fits well within our party in this area. Someone who I know is going to do well in Windham, because he will be running for the 49th state representative seat here in Windham. We have in studio today Brian Saucier. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Brian. We really appreciate you coming in. How does it feel now that you have officially filed your paperwork, started getting into the swing of things, and you are beginning your campaign to represent the town of Windham as a state representative in Hartford? How are things going?
Thank you for welcoming me, Chris, and good to see you again, Mike and Curtis. It was fantastic last night to kind of get my first swing at this new world, this new venture. It was great to meet some new faces, see some familiar faces, and just start going through the process of formulating what's in my own head and sharing it with others, and ideas that have been, thoughts that have been swirling around in there for a long time now have to take shape, and I have to do something with them.
Great. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, and also give them an idea of why you decided to run this cycle?
Sure. So I have been blessed to live in Windham with my wife and 4 kids for 16 years. And as I was kind of preparing for these sorts of thoughts, I realized that I have been in Eastern Connecticut for the majority of my life now. I've been in Eastern Connecticut since 1999. And it's all been in the immediate area. I started at UConn in 99 and lived in Colchester for a while and moved to Windham in 2010. What was my real spark? I guess, like I said, something like this has been on my mind. God has put this on my heart for a long time. And the spark most recently was just thinking again about another cycle of this seat running unopposed, and what message that sends to our own community, to the broader community, to my own children, to a lot of people that, and it's very little that I agree with Susan Johnson on. In the political realm, I've had many conversations with her over the years about many different things, and just the idea of her, and the ideas she represents, to be flat out unopposed, no contention, no other voices, no other perspectives, no other real contest, no pushback. That just rankled me enough to say that it's time to take action.
And I couldn't agree with that sentiment more. Having run in for a senatorial district that consists of 9 towns with several state representative seats within that district, I absolutely see the benefit of having a opposition to every single Democratic candidate within that district. It takes a team effort to really make changes in these elections, especially in a state like Connecticut, where it is heavily one-party majority, and it has been that way for decades. Eastern Connecticut, I think, has a distinct advantage over other parts of Connecticut, specifically because I think our values out here, the way that we live our lives in Eastern Connecticut, tends to be different than west of the river.
Oh, yeah.
We've felt it for years that politicians from other ends of the state kind of look at the quiet corner here and say, I'm not going to go there. I can't waste the time out there. There's not enough people. They're missing it. This is a strong base for us. And I think that it is very important for this district and for Eastern Connecticut to have candidates like you, Brian, like Jaden McCormick, who's stepped up to run against Pat Boyd in the 50th State Representative District. That covers part of Mansfield, Pomfret, Brooklyn, another seat that had been unopposed for a cycle or two. I absolutely agree that this is the way that we're going to be able to make a difference. This is a way that all of us together are going to be able to help each other, both with messaging, with appearances, with greeting people and talking to people and interacting with the public to make sure that we are doing something to improve the lives for the people in Eastern Connecticut. The next question I want to ask you, Brian, what do you think the most important issues facing the residents of Windham are that you can change as a state representative in Hartford?
So I have been blessed to travel around a lot of the country for work and for family vacations. And, my work trips usually take me to the cities, and my vacations take me to the rural areas. And there is an American rural culture. And that, I think, is what you were just alluding to, Chris. Like it exists. It's the same. It's essentially the same if you're in Texas or Washington State or North Carolina or New Hampshire or Eastern Connecticut. Rural is rural, and rural produces a mindset. Even downtown Willimantic is a tiny town in the grand scheme of things to how vast some stretches of suburb are. Like I go to places and I'm just sitting in traffic for 2 hours to travel 10 miles down the main road to get to a restaurant. I'm like, man, we live in a small town.
Yeah. Yep.
And I like it here. And there's a certain mindset that grows out of that. And that goes back to, and this is like a New England mindset of, the stubborn Yankee, and I'm not talking about Yankees versus Red Sox, I'm talking about like the New Englander.
Yeah.
That even was a term that I think was meant to be derogatory in some ways of swamp Yankee. It was a name that, particularly for the area around like the Rhode Island-Connecticut border, that's really rural. But that term is for a mindset of people that don't want the government to solve all their problems. They don't want the government to have a solution to every problem. There's supposed to be a sphere, a proper sphere for where the government is supposed to act. The town government has a sphere, a jurisdiction. The state government has a jurisdiction. The federal government has a jurisdiction. And I think it's pretty obvious, like it's nakedly obvious that that's all blown out of whack. And it's taken us a long, long time to get here. It is not going to, we're not going to come out of it overnight. Right. We're not going to come out of it through one political cycle. We're not going to come out of it through politics at all, ultimately. But there's leadership in the government, for better or for worse. Yep. And the leadership is going to give signals to people. It's going to tell them what should be important to them. There are direct monetary incentives to do certain things and disincentives for other things. So, that's sort of a non-answer to your question. Yeah. There's nothing particular there at all, but that's kind of the backdrop mindset from where I'm coming at this from. Right. And, what does that mean for Windham? Like there's a spread here in Windham. There's some parts that are on the edge of town that are very rural, and there's parts of here that are like your basic small, moderately dense suburb. And I would say just the growing sentiment that Hartford is a gang of bullies, and people are bullied on many things in many different ways. Some of the more recent ones this past year or two, like stuff like with these housing bills around where we're gonna. It doesn't matter what a planning and zoning commission in a town says or does. Hartford can just come in and tell them that, okay, there's going to be a massive new complex in your town, whether the people want it there or not.
Yep.
There's some distant experts somewhere that know better than you dumb simpleton. Just keep quiet, pay your taxes, and we'll figure out what you really need.
And most of those organizations that are doing that kind of think tank work for housing are not even based in Connecticut. They're talking to some developer, billionaire developer across the country who is only being enticed to Connecticut because this legislation lets them bypass the local authorities for planning and zoning. And if you fight that, they get to sue your town, and when they win, because they will, we as taxpayers are going to be on the hook for paying for that.
When you look at these housing reform bills going through Connecticut, and you look at the housing studies that they compel the towns to do, I encourage people to go ahead and research some of these housing studies and some of these bills that are going through Connecticut. You will find the exact model language. In some cases, you'll find the exact study language from town to town to town, all across the country. When some big, when some big contractor comes in and hires some consultants to go ahead and lobby their state houses, it's the same over and over. Just like you said, it's this national effort, it's this multinational effort that has no interest or bearing or care on the way that we want to run our towns and live our lives. So I'm happy that you're taking a stand against it.
Yeah, I mean, as the RTC chair in town, as a taxpayer, a father of children in town, when I had talked to you a little while back and you had said that you had the interest in this, it really, like this light bulb turned on. I was like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here we've got someone who we're not gonna say, okay, he might do a good job. We can accept that. We have somebody. I looked at my wife and I was like, we've got a family man, hardworking person. You're not out for a special interest. And everything that you're going to be doing is going to be above board. Something that your kids are going to be proud to look at and say, that's my dad. The morals, everything that you've instilled in them. I think you're the person that's going to bring that out. In the level of this position. I couldn't be more thankful. A great candidate like yourself has come forward.
That's right.
I feel blessed for the town. I really think this is going to be, could be a really big step in the right direction. I can't wait to see how this plays out.
Thank you for the kind words, Mike and Curtis. I'm excited.
One thing that I do want to mention, Brian, to one of the things you said about bullying in Hartford. Probably the most egregious example of this that I could think of was when there were hundreds of homeschool families and people who believe in the religious exemptions from vaccines and the mandates that the state are putting on us, who showed up to provide in-person testimony in Hartford, and the state party majority Democrats cut them off at midnight. 95%, more than 95% of those people were there to oppose this legislation, and they pretty much said, we don't care. We do not care what you have to say. We don't care that you have spent 10 hours in the legislative office building in Hartford. We don't want to listen to you anymore. That's exactly what that was, a snub right in the face of all of us. You, as an elected official, have a job to sit there and listen to the people that you represent.
Oh, yeah.
And when you say, sorry, we don't care anymore, I hope every single one of those people gets voted out of office. That is horrible. This is the type of thing that we need to end in Connecticut, because that's the way that we are going to get back to representation by the people and for the people. Right now, it is, just like Brian said, nothing but bullying going on there in Hartford.
That was the homeschooling issue was really the final straw. Now I had many conversations with Susan Johnson about that issue over the years, because this has come up over and over and over again.
Yeah. Oh, this was not the first time they tried to get it
all
through.
based on propaganda, basically, and twisted, made-up justifications about DCF failures or somehow the reason why homeschoolers need to be bothered. And it was another round of that this go around. And you can justify anything in the name of safety if you think the government is supposed to solve all the problems, keep everybody absolutely safe, and just basically do whatever the heck they think happens to be the safety measure. I know air quotes don't work in here in the radio.
Sure does. We're on
We're
video.
on video.
All right.
You can use the air quotes as much as you want, Brian.
So yeah, that was the final kind of issue of like, you know what, this one does hit very close to home for me. We've been a full-time homeschooling family for 15 years, close to it now, and that's one of those things where we have to be really grateful for like a little microcosm of history. It was a very small number of families in the 80s that like reestablished the concept, the right that parents can actually take direct responsibility for their children's education and they're not criminals for it.
Yep.
It was like almost to that point until they had these fights in the 80s, and Hartford has brought that up over and over and over again because it rankles a bunch of power-hungry people in Hartford that there's a set of children that are out of their control. No matter what they say about safety this and safety that, and we just want to make sure the kids have a second set of eyes on them when they're at school. It's like, well, deal with all the massive problems in the school system itself and leave the parents who have decided to remove their children from that system for various reasons, pay for it all themselves, every last dime, while still continuing to pay the same property taxes as everybody else. Just leave them alone. And that's the general sentiment of the rural community, is leave me alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up a good point with the funding that follows students, because the way the funding works in towns, even if a child is homeschooled, there's still funding that comes into that town and goes to that school, even though that child's not enrolled in that school. If a child goes to a school outside of their district, that money still stays there. So there's not a good way for homeschooling, or even, and this was the other thing that I was shocked to find out about the homeschooling bill, this notification of DCF was not only just for parents that were going to remove the child from school and homeschool them, but also if you took them out of the public school and enrolled them in a private school or a parochial school. Or I gave the example of myself when I was in high school, I was really into ski racing. Like, I was training year-round, skiing 300 days out of the year. I went to school in Vermont for part of high school. It was a private school that was strictly for ski racing, but that would have been something where my parents had to withdraw me from school in Connecticut, send me to Vermont. That would have been a DCF notification, right? They weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
And that is one of the big points that I want to also make, is that every parent is a homeschool parent until their child enters the public school system. Yeah. Think about all the milestones that occur during the first few years of life, up to 4 or 5, where they enter preschool or pre-K or kindergarten. You have taught that child eating, speaking, walking, using the bathroom. Huge achievements gained during this time period. But then as soon as they hit the doors of the school, hands off, they belong to the state.
It sure seems like that sometimes.
It sure feels that way.
Why not have a proactive investigation into every family right out of the gate, just in the name of safety? I mean, why not?
If you're going to go that far, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. One other thing that I want to also bring up about this with regard to homeschooling is that Connecticut used to have virtually no regulations regarding homeschooling. It was a very lax state. So this is a really dramatic turnaround for the families that do homeschool.
In the political realm, it
Yes.
was one of the few things on the list of reasons to move to Connecticut. In the political, it was there's a very short list of political reasons to move to Connecticut, and they just removed one of them.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that 100%. And that really is something that I think stimulated a lot of people in Connecticut to really pay attention to what was going on in the legislature. When you saw those hundreds and hundreds of families that showed up, and the way they felt that they were treated by the state legislature, there's a lot of people that are really angry with the state right now and with Hartford right now. And they should expect that, because Once again, as you have alluded to a number of times in this segment, Brian, it is overreach of the state government. At some point, we have to say enough is enough. We don't need this huge bureaucracy that we're $80 billion in debt to in Connecticut for all the future generations here. At some point, we need to start changing that trajectory and make this a state government that is not constantly looking to increase, but decrease and get back to, as we've discussed also, giving people their individual rights back. Because it very much seems like we're going away from individual rights to the collective rights of the group. And that is a step in the wrong direction for all of us. Okay? We have about 5 minutes left. We have a few minutes, I think, that we can talk about something that happened here in the town of Wyndham this week. We talk a few minutes about the referendum?
We can.
Do you want to take it, Mike, and get us started?
You know, I'll get started. I actually I worked the referendum, and so you know, I watched the people come in. I saw people coming in that you normally don't see. I work a lot of these. That tells me that people are getting tired of the same old, same old. You know, we're spending a lot of money, and people want to know what's going on with it, because you've got a lot of people that they just have no more to spend. It's not that they don't want to, that they're stingy or whatever the case may be. We have taken every last dollar from these people. There is no more to take. And the way I look at it is we're driving families apart. And people laugh when I say that. What's happening now is we're causing your family. We're causing this divide because now mom, who may have been a stay-at-home mom, has to get a job, maybe 2 jobs. Dad's got to work maybe 2 jobs. So now we've got children coming home from school who have no parental guidance, who are on their own. And I really think it's going to destroy our community further than the problem we've already got.
And we'll never make real meaningful headway solving that problem until we redefine the scope of the government. Like if the government is there to solve all the problems, and of course it needs all the resources. So we've let that happen gradually over decades and decades and decades. And we have a lot of work to do to reverse. Now we have to be responsible about the people that we have steered towards heavy dependency, but we have to also be restoring what was once a sane scope and jurisdiction for the government. Otherwise, we're just going to be circling the economic toilet drain forever, no matter which party's in control.
We're gonna get really deep into this budget and more on Monday. You know, I don't want to give everything up, but yeah, we are going to get into a lot of things like that.
How do you think the turnout was, though? You said you were there. Do you have numbers on turnout yet?
I don't have. I do.
Over 1,300 voters, which is more than I can remember within the last, I want to say at least 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I know I was at Wyndham Center. We got more at halfway point. We had more than double the votes of the previous.
Okay.
So we did. People got out. People came out. You know, and like one person on social media said, they did say, well, you know, it doesn't matter how you came out, but you did come out. And that's what we need. We need people to get engaged, and people to understand what's going on. We need people to show up at these council meetings, at the finance meetings, and find out, where is your money going? When that hard-earned money that you're staying away from your children to make, where is it going? What's it doing?
Next Wednesday, 7 p.m. at the Wyndham Town Hall, there's going to be a special Board of Finance meeting to talk about exactly that, what to do with the budgets now that they've been sent back to the Board of Finance. I really hope that people show up. That's next Wednesday, 7 p.m., Wyndham Town Hall.
And we'll review that again on Monday, because the 3 of us will be there together for Unfiltered Monday, 3 o'clock with Mike. You can always tune in to any of these episodes of either Right Now or Unfiltered by going to WILI.com, podcasts, Scroll all the way down. You'll see the 2 shows. You can select it in podcast format, listen to it anytime. You can also go to YouTube, search Right Now and WILI, or Unfiltered and WILI. You can see the in-video recording. And you can also go to Spectrum Public Access Channel 192. My show is on Tuesdays at 6:30, Saturdays at 7. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, May 14th, Right Now, here on 95.3 FM, WILI.